And question as follows: what are the unique challenges and opportunities that you're seeing facing currently right now, space industry growth in developing regions? What are the challenges mostly, right? And how can these challenges be addressed to drive growth and innovation? So whoever would like to get started. Here you go, Tanas. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure being able to speak in front of you all today. One of the main challenges that at least we're seeing from EnduroSat is when you're starting off in the industry, when you're focusing on the domestic market, a lot of the time it's a very small market. You have very few companies to talk with. For EnduroSat, there was none. When EnduroSat was founded in 2015, there was no space industry beforehand, even though Bulgaria is part of the European agency. We're not part of ESA. So it's very hard in the beginning to focus domestically. And one way of addressing this is to look for international partnerships and customers, try to expand your network, as this will greatly improve your chances of first being able to be noticed and build up your reputation as a company, not just being a domestic player, but also being able to communicate with these bigger and more renowned companies as well.
I could go next and say one of the main challenges is funding. As you would all know, we could do with more funds into the sector. But more importantly, one of the other issues entail the slow uptake of geospatial technologies in terms of decision making for government, especially. There is also, again, many projects that are being done that never transition into programs, where you have pilot projects and then they do not evolve because of one reason or the other. And then, of course, the issue around data is also a major concern. You want to do projects, especially when it gets to the applications. And of course, infrastructure for developing regions is also one of those challenges. How do we address that? Again, what we're trying to do in Kenya is to try to have, especially for government, taking up more in terms of the applications, trying to see how we can utilize space or promote the utilization of space technology in the decision and policy making process.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ben Greaves. I'm currently based in Abu Dhabi in the UAE with Startup Voices, just for context of this conversation. And so we work with many groups around the UAE, as well as many groups in the GCC region as a whole. So that's where I'll be kind of getting my thoughts from. One of the main things that I see, some of the challenges, is sustainable educational programs. You know, we find that all of these great opportunities span from really catalyzing and igniting youth opportunities. And so to be able to have maybe someone that starts that spark with a student program, to invest in that and to allow it to build year over year is one thing that I, from the States, have very much had the opportunity to take part in. And so to have that opportunity here, where you continue to build a community through some of these educational opportunities, that you're able to bring in more people, I think really is one of the main missing pieces that we have here in the GCC region that I think is slowly building up, and I think could definitely be an advantage moving forward.
Bernard,
all right.
Andy? Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Bernard. I work at Space Corp. We are aerospace manufacturer in Thailand. So the weakness in the developing region, there are three main things. We are like emerging market, right? So we don't have in the high demand as in the developed country. The second thing is we don't have a very well-regulated environment. For example, law or regulatory bodies, and also we also lack of infrastructure to achieve the research and development. So in the weakness that happening, we still have opportunities to do that, which is we still have the untapped market, the growing demand in satellite, and the affordable space for developing government. So there is also the collaboration opportunities with different company or government level, and we also have new access to new resources, for example, manpower or natural resources. So we can have a strategy to drive the growth and innovation to in the space sector is the partnership between private sector and government, and also the investment for infrastructure, demand, skilled worker, and also the last thing is the government support, the policy maker to make it streamlined.
Andy, go ahead.
Building on one of the points that Ben Greaves just raised around education, is one of the unique challenges is suitably qualified and experienced personnel. So if I look at the UK market, we've got the advantage of having Airbus Defence and Space in country, which means they've got several thousand employees. So, you know, we're in a comparatively fortunate position, but even so, we struggle to find and recruit people with the right background and with the right experience. And some of the solutions to that could be in-house training. So when we're bringing new technicians on board and moving them from, say, defense product or civil aerospace product onto space product, we put them through an internal training course, but also through Space Hub Yorkshire and the Leeds Education Partnership, we're looking at trying to create a regional training program, bringing together some of the knowledge within the local universities to create a training program to upskill a wider base to help feed all the space businesses in the region.
Luisa, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Luisa. I'm representing the Brazilian Space Agency. And yes, I can agree with my colleagues here. The two things that I can contribute, it's like technological complexity of the initial of the business, you know. So, like we know that the developing new technologies have a huge challenge with the partnerships and the budgets. So we know that the universities and the research institutes can be hopefully partnership in this. But for that, you need the regulation and too. So the regulatory challenges that we have in developing countries, it's huge. We don't have the law, the space law for that, and we are doing with the best that we have here. So I think all the things that we need for improving this, it's contacting with the friends of the other countries that we have on our most baggage in this, and we can share all the things that you can learn in the past of few years. And yeah, we are doing a good progress with the most of we have here right now.
Okay, so while Luisa, you mentioned some of the challenges, and obviously this is a question for everybody, maybe we can talk about some of the technical challenges that those developing regions are facing, and maybe you can give some advice based on your experience how they can overcome some of those technical challenges.
Yeah, thank you. Here in Brazil, we are developing for these problems, education actions in the space area. So we have a significant impact when we are training programs for developing skilled workforce capable to contribute in the space industry, right? So promoting innovation and entrepreneurship in this, providing research and support to individuals that have the idea and they have the atmosphere of innovation can stimulate the economic growth here. The technological problems that we have, I think most of my colleagues here have too. It's with EA technology, small satellites that in large of growth, and the rockets for huge of sending small satellites. We are doing on today on partnership with the an industry of South Korea that then this year we are launching small satellites with them, And yeah, we are excited about this kind of environment. But all this is not possible if we don't have the base of the passion. So I think the most things that we are doing right now for the significant impact and the growth on the environment, it's the educational actions.
Andy, go ahead.
I think Louisa raises a good point. So she mentioned collaboration with South Korea, and I think part of the way to help solve technical challenges is certainly collaboration and trying to access the subject matter experts around the world. And that can really only be done by building those networks. But that doesn't necessarily have to be international. So if there's regional trade bodies, finding out who's in the area that also plays in space and therefore is able to give you guidance or advice on what it's like. And to a certain extent, competitors. So space is a little unusual as an industry in that a lot of businesses are quite keen to help each other, and it's quite a collaborative environment. As opposed to some other markets where competitors would never try and work together. And if you are needing to look internationally, trying to reach out through any government bodies or regional or national membership organizations to try and help facilitate trade delegations, trade visits, attendance at trade shows, or even who they've got in their contact network to try and build that network and gain access to that information and support.
Thomas?
I just wanted to expand on what was previously mentioned by my fellow panelists. Education is really the key here. In a lot of developing countries, you don't really have a pre-established space education program. A lot of the time, young professionals don't really see opportunities to pursue a career in space, which is really unfortunate. We have some amazing minds that we unfortunately miss out on just because they're not aware of the opportunities. That is why for the last 13 years, our CEO has been organizing an educational program within Bulgaria. This was one of our biggest years, the previous Space Challenges. It's been going on for 13 years and is fully subsidized and organized by Endurosat. We basically have kids from all over the world, including from Kenya, visit us in Bulgaria. We basically bring some leading industry professionals from all over the world, including from the European Space Agency, ex-astronauts, and just really competent people, just basically inspire these young people to pursue a career in space. That is why we really believe that without this, you can't really expect to have trained professionals without training them yourselves as well.
Good point. So I'd like to come back to what Andy was talking about, where he was, mentioning partnerships and collaborations, and how is that really a key to successful growth in some cases when we're talking about startup companies and those developing regions. And you kind of brought up and talked about, going to the expos and networking. And I'd like to get more of your, individual perspective and input in terms of those successful ideas that can really help startups to develop, effectively by building collaborations and establishing great partnerships with companies and organizations in the space industry. So that will be a question of what would you recommend for those space startups in those developing regions?
If I can go first, and I want to take up what Thanas was sharing in terms of the working collaboration between ourselves and Endurosat. Courtesy of that engagement, where they're also working with, together with ourselves, we're working with one of the startups in Kenya. And we're hoping that in a couple of days, we will be making an announcement. The intention of that is essentially to create those linkages, especially for startups like in Kenya, where space is not native as such, but by creating linkages and pathways with established companies across the globe, then you're able to bring it closer home. And we we also have a heritage ourselves with the Italian government, where we have a spaceport that was established some time back. But it was those linkages that enable developing regions to have access or have a taste of what space looks at and what potential capabilities that would bring that to the fore. And of course, in terms of the potential and job opportunities that would that can be brought back. So in Kenya and again in Africa, we are looking for opportunities like those where we can enhance that and going forward, see how we can leverage on those opportunities.
Andy?
I think one of the major topics for startups is to learn and listen. So there's a lot of people out there who have been through that journey, especially as the space industry is growing so rapidly. So building the network is a good start, but knowing and being brave enough to ask for help and being self-critical and not protectionist enough to actually listen to the advice. So anybody that says getting into space is easy and you should do it no matter what, great industry, is a dangerous track to be on. Space is difficult, it's challenging, it's risk averse, it's expensive, it's time consuming, but it is growing, you know, 9% a year growth, at least. It's a good industry if you're used to and aware of what those risks and challenges are. One of the ways to do that is to try and find people to mentor you. So, you know, reach out to some of the big companies and don't be afraid of asking, because a lot of people in the industry are there and want to help others succeed. And the last point, I think, is about trying to split out the technical challenges from the financial challenges. So a lot of small startups are really keen. They've got these great technical ideas of how they're going to help revolutionize the industry, but actually it needs to work financially as well. And a lot of the people that have that technical mindset don't necessarily have the business tools to be able to manage that. So, you know, being self-aware, self-critical, asking for help will go a very long way.
Yeah, and like, I mean, just piggybacking off of that, it's a leap of faith to start a company and a leap of faith again to do that in a developing area, which might not have stakeholders and people that are ready to quickly invest in a new technology such as space. And at the same time, you know, we're also currently living through such a burgeoning industry that's rapidly changing, moving towards commercial space. We're part of Voyager Space's upcoming Starlab space station along with NanoRacks. And so Starlab Oasis will be coordinating all the agricultural technology on that upcoming space station. And so one thing that we've found success in here in Abu Dhabi is having no shortage of creative ideas when you want to partner with people. And so, you know, talking to some companies, we act more of a space player. Talking to others, we're more of an agricultural player, and finding ways to make sure that we're able to connect with as many people as possible. There's such an incredible prowess and amount of investment in agriculture here in the UAE and the GCC region. And there's knowledge that, you know, they need to develop more sustainable technologies in order to continue to thrive. And so, you know, what we bring to the picture is that these technologies are also space technologies, and showing people, you know, space is no longer just rocket scientists. There are so many different ways to get involved, as are some incredible examples on our panel here today. And so, you know, by being able to explain that, and you're able to bring in so many new partnerships, and then, you know, talking on conventions like this are great ways to connect. So, you know, shout out to ISC for bringing us all together here.
Thank you, Ben. Very much appreciated. Also, as we're discussing here, and as Andy was also talking about building partnerships, collaborations with, for example, established companies, which is one point of view. Another point of view, which we might already establish that already, but what about governments and the policies and regulations? And we have a few government players here in this room. So one is from Kenya Space Agency and Brazilian Space Agency, and obviously there's even higher up level going from there as well. But a question as it goes, so what role do government policies and regulations play in supporting the growth of the space industry in developing regions? And what steps can be taken to ensure that these policies are effective and responsive to the needs of the industry? Go ahead, Andy.
It's a dangerous question to answer if anybody from the UK Space Agency or ESA is listening, because we're about to criticize them. I'd say, especially having read the latest tranche of UK Space Agency policies, if governments can choose which areas of space they want to specialize in, at least industry stands a chance. I mean, space is huge. You've got manufacturing, you've got the services, you've got launch, uplink, downlink, and the use of that data on the back end, again, huge. So it's really easy for governments to sit back and say, yep, space is a great industry, we want to invest money, but actually that doesn't really help anybody unless the government has identified what kind of specialisms and capabilities are already in place in country and then tries to support those.
Thank you, Andy. Luisa, go ahead.
Here in Brazil, we are doing National Space Activities Program that last year was published, and we happy. They happen that we are doing some regulations. We are doing a master's and doctorate in space law too, for helping those regulatory activities that we are doing in our launch center Alcântara in Barreira do Inferno, and we have that atmosphere of creating new regulations, you know. So for spread the word, we are doing events about this for the technology, access the public in general. The Brazilian space with the Mundo Geo have organized an event that is called Space BR Show, that is international, and since 2018 have great partners, and is considering one of the most important space events in America and Latina. So it's an annual event, so come to Brazil to see. It's amazing. And this focus on space technology and applications. So we have a range of topics and panel discussions, and doing this kind of networking for the space economic industry is very important, because we can see the collaboration with the industry and academia, and when we are doing the best, more weakness or strength, and have these social developments here. It's another initiative that we are doing. It's the catalog of all space technologies here in the industries. So in the version of 2029, we have featured some companies that is very important since of the past few years, and until now, early startups, and this can be some information important to all the stakeholders, and the entrepreneur can mix up and doing a good improvement in the space industry here. This is kind of them, but I think, like I say, that it's not only the events for this, but it's an only event for education, because we can bring the young people and young professionals for this debate that's very important.
Thank you, Luisa. Charles, go ahead.
Thank you, Martinez. And you have a valid question, and Andy started on high note on putting us on the spot as government, because he was right in terms of what we indicate in the policy and the strategy has a lot of impact in terms of where the investment goes into. And in Kenya, we've noticed that we had a policy that we had developed in 2016, and we're currently in the process of reviewing it, because one of the things that we realized then was we had not factored in the element of new space companies and startups as well as the need for infrastructure. And the reason why we felt it was important to review that is because, again, most of the people, even the international collaborators, look at what are your aspirations as a country and where can they see as opportunities for investment. And just to mention when I mentioned the infrastructure, we're also looking at the possibility of setting up like a spaceport because we have that heritage and we have that geographical location. But again, it's more of the intention. The policy clearly indicates the intention of government where they want the business to go. And when you look at our sector, because we are quite young, ourselves, we are looking at the whole spectrum. Again, I mentioned we have a geographical location near the equator, so we are looking at launching. We're also looking at satellite development, and part of the discussion we've had with Endurosat and the like is towards building capacity around that. And again, also more importantly, one of the areas that has not been shed a lot of light on is the application, because there is a lot of potential. Again, of course, the likes of NASA they have built up a lot of fancy and a lot of heritage on the upstream. But again, from our region, we look at the application as one of the areas that especially has a lot of growth potential. And if we could put a lot of effort, then it could also support a lot of startups within and also companies within that sector. So you're right in terms of the need for policies and the right strategies to spur the growth within the sector.
Thank you, Charles. Bernard?
All right, so the government is important to the to push the space economy policy or policy or regulation to support the growth of space industry. So in the developing region, we have limited resource. So the government should strategically plan what sector we should focus in, or with the limited resources, how we are going to achieve that. So the first thing the government need to do is they are demand maker. So who is the buyer from the private company? They have the product, but they don't have the first customer to buy it. So the second thing is the infrastructure maker. So it turns out that the infrastructure is not completed, so it is more expensive to test overseas or in developed area. So government have to subsidize the private company to achieve the goal, the master plan that they laid out, and even they have to have a continuous policy as well.
Thank you, Bernard. Question from for Juan Jaramillo, and thanks Juan for joining us. As you currently are from Ecuador, so maybe you can also comment what action plans are being put in place either for government or private side to foster the local growth of the ecosystem there in Ecuador.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Here in Ecuador, South America, we have certain difference between countries like Ecuador, Brazil, Argentina. Specifically here in Ecuador, we have the problem that the government has no priority for space business. They don't have defined policies or regulations to improve or promote the development of the space industry. Is the sector that is leading the space development is the private sector, with the Central Space Foundation or Astronaut Space Technology Company. In that case, I think that the more essential role of the government is learn about the topic. We are working with the government in education processes for people that take decisions. We can say that here in Ecuador about the government, we have a blank paper about what to do respect the space industry. but we consider that it's positive because we can build something very interesting. In fact, we have a strong support from foreign ministry and defense ministry, and they are working in some areas and policies as a result of the work and advances that private sector is reaching. One important thing is here in Ecuador, the topic is not yet in the stage about the technical or financial discussion about how much invest in the space industry. Is more now about the change the minds, the culture of the people. Most of the people in Ecuador, for example, consider that space technology and space industry is too far away from their lives. And it's not the case because everybody has a cell phone, use telecommunication services, internet. So, but the problem here is how to change the culture of people to accept that they are working with space assets. I want to say, for example, here even in the big universities that has faculties of engineering, electronics, decades or hundreds of years in the oldest universities, they don't understand that they are working with technologies and knowledge really with relation to space industry. So in conclusion, the role of the government here in Ecuador is learn how to develop the future development of the space industry.
Thank you, Juan, for those insights from all the way from Ecuador. So I want to ask a question. Obviously, as we look back in a history and the space race that was happening between two of the biggest countries out there, and it's all about the space dominance because that equals to the power, and the power is equals to the, you know, being the most powerful and whatnot. So I mean, for the countries, it should be important that, and now as some of you mentioned, that it's not being prioritized and space is being overlooked in terms of the government activities and maybe not prioritized as much. How we can also, you know, ensure that some of the countries out there, which again, if we tie in our space and becoming a space superpower, which is equally important for countries, that those countries not going to be left behind during the space race, and basically to develop space technology and that would benefit from the commercial opportunities that it presents. Go ahead, Thomas.
So just to quickly jump in here, I think that a lot of developing countries are already on the back foot. They start off following the trends. So my big suggestion would be to really try to see where the space industry is going forward and to try to target a real issue we have either on Earth or in orbit. Once you're able to basically point at that issue and say, we're gonna go after it, you really need to see what your competitors are doing as well and try to really develop a product which will be able to either completely solve this issue or provide a new perspective on it. And I think in that way, a lot of developing countries and industries in the developing countries can also really surprise everyone, because a lot of these problems aren't really focused at as much as they should be. And the private sector is fantastic in that way, is if there is gain to be had, there always will be a smart person who is going to pursue that problem and find a solution as well.
Thank you, Thomas. Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. To build on that, I think, you know, trying to make sure that we're not painting all developing regions with one single brush, you know, many different talents, many different resources, many different levels of expertise. And that's what I think that they would be able to leverage, you know, what they would be able to bring to the front. And I think kind of going off of the idea of being specific with something, you know, we saw the success with that with Canada, you know, many years back, starting with the Canada arm, and how that not only allowed them to specialize and focus on a single thing, not to diminish the other space gains that Canada made at the time, but also serving as a huge inspiration. And so that investment that Canada made in capitalizing on Canada arm has obviously paid off times over. And that has allowed not only for the space industry to develop, but also obviously the robotics industry. And so I think a lot of these developing countries and developing regions and emerging space nations can really hone in on, you know, what they can uniquely bring to the table. And then, you know, going back to some of our other conversations, how they can partner with maybe other regional partners to really, you know, rise, you know, making sure that all the boats are able to rise with the rising tide. So I think through partnerships and through specializing was something that you're uniquely qualified for, helps to really kick up a space industry.
Go ahead, Luisa. Thank you, Ben.
And I think we can see in developing regions that we have a scale of problems. Like, yeah, in a good country, you can see that the agriculture or management, disaster and climate monitoring, it's a huge and a big scale that we know that have proven the space sector. So I think in developing countries, we are in the beginning of the scale of the power. And yeah, it is sad because we know that they pick a picture of this. But doing this kind of pilot of the problems that we are solving, we are growing in the industry. And I think that we are doing this, but we are doing this only for doing and not learning and teaching for the young professionals, and we are not doing the right work, right? Like you are doing the progress of this amount of time that after. And so, yeah, you can do space technology is very high, but we are doing for this for why? It's for solving problems of in Earth, and this kind of thing that you can do. It's for the humans in the planet, and the next generations can see this and they're doing more and more. So the point of that, it's like my colleague of the Ecuador, yeah, we are doing the best, but we are not having the feedback because we are not reaching in real situation of our countries. So when you have the big picture of your country and see that the technology don't reach all the people, yeah, you are doing a good progress in the space industry too. It's like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Andy, go ahead.
Building on Ben's point about identifying specialisms, that's exactly how we got into space as a company in the first place. So space is only 4% of our revenue, but we're not a particularly big company. So revenue is about 30 million a year, GBP. But we got into space because we identified that we were at least a UK leader and pretty predominant within the EU within gear technology. And it was us kind of doing a bit of market research, finding out a bit more about space. And it just happened at that time that Airbus Defence and Space needed a new product, and were reaching out to us to say, hey, you know, you're good in this field, what can you do for us? So I'd advise anybody who isn't in space, whether that's manufacturing or otherwise, but looking to say, you know, is space good for my business, to really evaluate what are your unique selling points, and then go and have the conversation. You know, identify where you would fit in the supply chain, speak to existing companies, speak to potential customers, and see if they think there's a technology pull, as well as you being willing to invest time and effort in getting into the industry.